guys, Bjornton here, and welcome to the Tee-Off, my new series that focuses as a beginner guide for various games. Over the next week or so, I'm gonna try and put together a list of videos specifically about Wargame-AirLand Battle that should help some new players when they're coming in to play the game. I'm going to review the units in the game and see what they're good against and what they're not, because this game is basically a chess game and you just have to know what to counter what with. So today we're going to look at the basics of the Armory before we go on to more personalized videos about each type of unit in the game. So what you see right now is the main screen. To get to the Armory to make your deck, you obviously want to go deck here. And then you want to go to the Armory, unless you already have the deck that you want made. So you can see I've got 2 NATO decks that I like to play around with when I'm stuck on NATO side. And then several pack decks, which is what I usually play. My newest one being this Counter Barbarossa, which is a Soviet deck, very tank heavy, also a lot of infantry and a lot of anti-air, and I find it to be very effective even without the artillery that I usually roll with. But let's go to the Armory right now. Okay, so what I want to go over pretty quickly in this video, and this is what we'll mostly be focusing on, is just the basics of the Armory. You can see up here when you're looking to do Armory things, you can look at all the units in the game straight off the bat, depending on their category. So if you don't choose a specific one to look at, you can see literally every country involved. I find this to be a little overwhelming from the get-go, so I usually choose what I like. So up here, let's say I want to focus on the Warsaw Pact because that's the deck that I usually play. So we click off of that, so only the Warsaw Pact is being shown. Now from here you can see the 4 countries involved: East Germany, Soviet Union, Poland, and Czechoslovakia. And you can see they're all involved here. Now, I like to focus on one country alone because when I'm making a deck, I usually do specialize only in one country because it gives you more points to start with. So more points to start with equals more units in the game. So I've run with all of these countries. East Germany was the first one I did, and you get a lot more points there, but you find that the units are a lot weaker. So, and then of course my latest deck is Soviet Union's specialty, and that's probably what I will stick with today, just to make it easier on you and myself. Also, though, I've seen, or I've played very good games with both Czech and Polish decks. So, now we're down to Warsaw Pact and only the Soviet Union, so everything's a little bit more compact over here in the Armory. So, just to continue with the basics here, you can see the categories. You can see you have your logistics, your infantry, support, tanks, recon, vehicles, helicopters, and airplanes. And you can see all of them available in the game. Now, as of open beta, all of these units are unlocked. I don't know if this is how it's going to be when it launches May 22nd, so we'll have to stay tuned and find out. Finally, in this short video, I want to cover over here, which is the info bar for all these units. So let's say, let's take this guy down here, the T-80U, which is the most powerful tank in the Soviet Union, and trust me, it is a killer in the game. So you can hide that if you want to move it around. You gotta left click first, and then you can right click around. Check it out. And then you can see, bring back up this info grid here, which is what we want to pay attention to real quick. There's 3 weapon slots for each unit. Some have all 3, some have 2, some have 1, some have none. So you gotta pay attention to what they have. On the weapons here, you can see that there's different types here if you scroll under it. So, for example, this is an anti-tank guided missile here. This is an AoE, and also it gets stronger the closer this unit is to the enemy. And this doesn't have any specialties, so we can just assume that it's going to shoot the 12,700mm rounds, 300 of them at the ground, up to 1,050 meters, and a helicopter is up to 875 meters. You can see that it can't hit planes, and you can check the accuracy. You can also check the AP power here of each weapon, and the AP power is essentially how much damage it would do to an armored vehicle. So you can see that because of this being an anti-tank weapon and being guided and having a high AP power and a pretty good accuracy, that you're guaranteed a couple of really good hits on armored vehicles here. You can also see the HE power, which is the damage it deals to non-armored targets. It's the opposite of AP power. And these weapons, these two first here, can't even target non-armored targets. Only this third one can. So you can see what kind of power it'll do to that. And you don't need as much power in the HE because they're not armored, obviously. Suppression is also important. You can see how effective it is in stunning an enemy or lowering its morale so that it has to leave battle. And then rate of fire is also important, so you can see, you can check how much ammo is up here to start with, and you can see how fast it's going to go. Another important thing on this grid to pay attention to is the picture down here, where you'll always see 4 different numbers. These numbers represent the armor on the tank. So you can see this is the Ford tank, and you can see it's a 20 right there. So right there is where it has the most armor, which is 20. There's armor under it, armor over it, and armor on the back. So this is useful for knowing if you are planning on leaving, if you have to retreat, you can know where to retreat, or if you go into battle, you know which you have to go first. You can also see strength, which is essentially hit points after this armor. You can see the size, which affects how easily the unit will be hit. Optics gives you field of vision. Speed when you're off-road, obviously tells you how fast you are off-road, and then when you're on-road there's a different speed. Stealth will tell you how easily it's detected by other units. Fuel capacity is important to pay attention to because you're going to want to know how far you can take these units around the battlefield. Autonomy is... I'm still not quite too sure what it is. It looks like it has to do with fuel also, so I don't know, I'll have to come back to that sometime. Stabilizer is how good the weapon is at locking onto moving targets, especially while the unit itself is moving. You can see the year, this is historically accurate, and you can see the type, so armored, flying, copter, and stuff like that. And then you can see if it's a prototype. If it is a prototype, then it's available only to certain countries. So if you wanted this T-80U, you would have to build a Soviet specialty deck, and it could only be the Soviet because only they have this prototype. So this doesn't apply to all tanks. For example, this tank doesn't have the prototype. And you can see the same thing on helicopters and stuff. So for these first 4, I believe most of them are about the same as far as this info down here. Of course, you probably won't find any info here if you click on your base, which is, you always need one of at least. Some people run without them, and I don't understand why, because you need them to help refuel. Unless you maybe had a bunch of refuel trucks, then you didn't want to worry about a base, but it's usually a good idea, especially if you have artillery. But we can see over here it changes up a little bit for helicopters and airplanes. So for helicopters, obviously there's not going to be a road speed, but everything else is still the same. And you can see this doesn't have all the weapons. And then for the planes, again, no road speed. and you can see the weapons here. So, thanks for watching the first video in the series, and